Okay, so today we're diving deep into unemployment.
Unemployment.
Yeah, a term I think we hear all the time, but do we really understand it? I mean, you hear it on the news all the time, but do you actually know what it means?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it seems simple on the surface, but then when you start to like peel back the layers, it gets really, really complicated.
Yeah. And, maybe you're here because you have a meeting coming up and somebody's going to be throwing around unemployment statistics, or maybe you're just curious, or maybe you're doing some research for a paper.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason, we've got some really interesting source material here to help unpack it. And I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yes, definitely.
Because it's not just the definition we're going to look at.
Right.
We're also going to look at a real world example.
Yeah.
That I think really brings home the complexities and the impact of unemployment.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it'll be a really fascinating deep dive.
For sure.
Okay, so first off, let's just get the definition out of the way.
Right.
The classic definition.
Yeah.
So our sources say unemployment means a person actively seeking work but without employment.
Yeah. And that actively seeking work part is really important.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about why that's so important.
Well, I mean, because it distinguishes unemployment from just being out of the workforce.
Okay.
Right. So you could be, retired.
Right.
You could be a stay-at-home parent.
Right.
You could, be choosing not to work for whatever reason. But you're not unemployed unless you're actually out there looking for a job.
So it's not just about not having a job. It's about wanting one and trying to get one.
Exactly.
Okay. So how do they measure that, though? I mean, how do you know who's actively seeking work?
Yeah. I mean, that's where it gets really tricky.
Yeah.
Because typically they'll look at things like, have you applied for jobs? Have you registered with employment agencies?
Okay.
But there's a lot of people who maybe have gotten discouraged and stopped looking.
Right.
Even though they actually would like to work.
Right.
So it's not a perfect measure.
Gotcha. So it's almost like the unemployment figures that we see are just like the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. Yeah. And it really highlights how unemployment isn't just a statistic. It's about people's lives.
Right.
It's about their livelihoods.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their families, their communities.
Yeah. And speaking of impact, our sources bring up a really powerful and unfortunately very recent example. And that's the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, that was like a global shock to the system.
Yeah.
And I think it really illustrated the very real consequences of unemployment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Our sources specifically mention the travel and hospitality industries. I mean, those were just decimated.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Almost overnight.
Yep. Yeah, with lockdowns and travel restrictions. I mean, the impact was immediate and severe.
And it wasn't just the people who worked in those industries.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, think about all the ripple effects.
Right.
So, fewer people traveling, less demand for transportation, less demand for food services, entertainment, the whole...
Like throwing a stone in a pond, the ripples go out and affect everything.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important point, which is there are actually different types of unemployment.
Oh, okay. So there's more than one.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about that.
So, what we saw during the pandemic was largely what's called cyclical unemployment.
Right.
And that's driven by, a downturn in the overall economy. But there's also frictional unemployment.
Okay.
Which is kind of like the natural churn of people moving between jobs, entering the workforce for the first time.
Right.
And then there's also structural unemployment. And that occurs when there's a mismatch between the skills that workers have and the skills that employers are looking for.
So like somebody whose job is replaced by automation.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's becoming increasingly relevant as technology continues to evolve.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we've got the definition, we've got the impact, we've got different types.
A lot.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is for our listener, what does all of this mean?
Well, I think it means that unemployment's a really complex issue with these far-reaching consequences.
Right.
It's not just about numbers. It's about people. It's about policies. It's about these global trends that are all kind of intertwined.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe as you go about your day, you start to notice these dynamics in your own life.
Yeah.
Maybe in your own job or your community. Maybe you see the impacts of automation or globalization, or you hear about government programs that are, trying to retrain workers for these new industries.
Yeah. And that kind of brings me to my final thought, which is how might the very nature of work and even the definition of unemployment itself change?
Oh, wow.
In the coming years?
Yeah.
With the rise of the gig economy, artificial intelligence, remote work.
It's
a lot to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It really is. And on that note, we will leave you to ponder that question. And hopefully this deep dive has given you a richer understanding of unemployment and
all its complexities.
Yeah. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. I think that was a really good one.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we did.
And I think it was really interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, I'm going to go grab some coffee.
Sounds good.
See you later.
See ya.